The other part that's interesting as the industry has evolved over time is certainly the hosted payload side. We were pioneers in that area, and we've seen a real change in the way our government customers procure capacity over the last few years. It's a situation where the budgets are tighter than they've ever been. These government programs have often been plagued by delays and cost overruns. So we offer something called firm fixed pricing, or definitive pricing to deliver capacity on station at a certain time. And this is something that we're seeing more and more of. One of our great customers, the Australian Defence Force, will be on IS-22, which, by the way, is ahead of schedule today. And when they did the analysis of working with Intelsat versus doing this on their own, they figure that saved them over 150 million Australian dollars. So it's good value for money for them, and certainly gives them the capability quickly. We have other customers over time that will continue to do this, and this is very complementary to what we're doing on the commercial side. So for us, as a diversified operator, we have data transmissions or data services through our network services and telecommunications product set. We also have, of course, the media and video part, and then the government part of our business is growing very quickly. It now represents about 20% of our revenues. So a lot of good things happening, a lot of change over time, but how do we ensure that continues? And of course, one of my concerns is how we protect our frequencies that are under threat. Certainly on the C-band side, we know this is the case. In the last WRC, we won the battle, but we certainly did not win the war. And it's up to us in 2012 to continue to fight the battle, to protect our frequencies so that we're in a position to serve our customers in so many important ways throughout the region and the world. So I ask all of us to ensure that you put your best people into this effort. I think last year, SES, Intelsat, and Inmarsat did a very good job working together with the rest of the industry to drive a cohesive agenda to ensure that our message was heard, and it was. But I think we need more help this time around, and welcome that help. The other side that I think is incredibly important for us is interference mitigation. Over 90% of it is unintentional. It's anything from setting up the antennas wrong, the uplinks wrong, to using them incorrectly, to malfunctioning equipment, to just poor training, so people are not to the level they should be. At Intelsat, we've invested a lot of money in upgrading our capabilities, not only training our own people, but training our customers. Unfortunately, when I look at the numbers, they're still fairly low for Asia Pacific. So I ask you to work with the Global VSAT Forum and other organizations. Certainly Intelsat can help, so that we can do more as an industry to do that. Often we think of capacity in a very finite way rather than looking end to end. Always go down to the customer experience through the entire network and see where we fall down. And I think as an industry, if we want to continue to be the preeminent distributor of content and data in a ubiquitous manner, we've got to ensure that we have the best quality possible, and that it means working together. Then the last part I wanted to discuss about in terms of industry initiatives is the Space Data Association. Again, that was founded by SES, Intelsat, and Inmarsat. We have 10 members today. We have 12 members that are looking at it. For those who are not members, we encourage you to join. It's only $12,000 a year. It's all about protecting our services again. It's about space situational awareness, so we can understand space debris and mitigate potential impacts of that. And of course, it supports what we're doing on the interference side. So whoever is here, if you're not a member, please talk to Roman or me, and we'll be happy to put you in touch with the right people so that we can sign you up.
Tom Choi, Asia Broadcast Satellite. Since we were here last year, new owners, and a lot of advances on ABS2's manufacturing. Perhaps a little update from your side.
Thanks, David. We got started in 2006. We basically took over a satellite company called LMI, which Lockheed owned, but didn't have one employee taking care of the sales and marketing. Since we took that company over, we've been growing, I would say, on average, greater than 50% compounded annual growth for the past 6 years or 5 years. And we're projecting sometime next year to achieve somewhere very close to 100 million in annual sales. After acquiring that in-orbit capacity, we also successfully acquired 3 additional satellites from other operators within Asia to populate different orbital slots besides 75 East. So right now we have satellites occupying 75 East, 116, as well as 146. Sometime later this year, we're going to be expanding. We're going to be moving one of our satellites to a slot over the Atlantic Ocean, where we see a tremendous amount of demand and growth in Africa as well as Latin America. So the AOR slot is going to allow us to expand outside of the traditional Asia, Middle East markets that we have been serving. We see that, outside of the developed economies like North America as well as Western Europe, where the demand is rather soft, the developing economies where the GDPs are growing greater than 5%, we see a huge level of demand for capacity, not only in Asia, but Africa, Middle East, as well as South America. I think as countries evolve, as people get wealthier, they want to watch more television, or whether it's by cable or by DTH, or they want to have telephone services by their mobile phones. Any one of those types of applications are driving demand. So we see a tremendous growth in the future in the satellite space. So above and beyond building ABS-2, which will be launched in about 18 months from now, in this first half of 2013, we're also looking at expanding our existing base of a satellite fleet by potentially looking at additional investments. We may potentially look at one additional satellite at 75 East, as Paul mentioned. A lot of our customers who have signed up for ABS-2 at 75 East are DTH customers, and they're concerned about reliability, they're concerned about redundancy. And we also have enough spectrum at 75 East to launch an additional satellite there as well. But above and beyond that, the average fleet life of our satellites are not that young. So we're also, so this is the reason why we're considering the additional investments that we'll be making.
Inoue-san, SkyPerfect JSAT, last 12 months, obviously many challenges in Japan.
Yeah,
domestic opportunities and competitive landscape for you.
So I think there are 2 aspects. One is Japan is a country where digital divide is gradually disappearing due to aggressive fiber cable expansion of incumbent telecom carriers, and also an effort by the Ministry of International Affairs and Communications with its lucrative subsidies. So therefore, the demand for satellite broadband for individual usage in Japan is not so huge anymore. But on the other hand, and at the same time, in assessing the corporate demand, we have experienced the saturation of satellite communication usage in the past years. The demand of supplementary or backup for terrestrial circuit is almost flat. This is, of course, as a result of improved penetration or redundancy of terrestrial networks. However, as I mentioned before, we are seeing a reversal of this trend due to the earthquake.
So people are thinking more about their disaster recovery scenarios, their network resilience?
So actually, we are expecting the government will increase the budgets for the satellite communications, especially for the governmental organizations, in order to at least secure the minimal communications in the event of such kind of future catastrophic events. So we are really happy to see a lot of sectors, other industry sectors such as power companies or telecommunication companies are also increasing the capacity for the backup. So previously we thought probably the communications for the corporate satellite usage will be almost flat for the coming years, but it's quite good news for us, for our company, to see a lot of renewed interest to our industry, especially satellite communications, even for the backup.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it often takes a scenario like a disaster for people to really take disaster recovery and resilience seriously. So it's it's refreshing to see that a conversation is taking place today. And obviously in other parts of the world with other disasters we've seen, of course in New Zealand with tremendous earthquake activity down there, a lot of loss of terrestrial infrastructure, and people assume that will be available forever, but often when a disaster strikes it's wiped out. Tom, last few minutes left, your thoughts?
Well, when I started in this industry 15, 20 years ago, you could literally buy a satellite for $50 million. You can have it built in 12 months, and you can have it launched for less than $50 million. So $100 million would get you a satellite in orbit. And the most important thing is that you could build a satellite to meet customer demand. You didn't have to wait 3 years. You can actually do it in 12. I think the industry has, grown too complex. The sales cycle of the manufacturers are too complicated. Maybe the customers are too demanding as well. They're wanting too many switches, too many beams. We're definitely guilty of that. But I think the industry needs some platform like a Ford Model T type of a satellite where you just buy what's already built in the inventory that costs very low, with almost no complexity, no changes, with a lower cost launch option. And if we can reduce somehow, as Dr. Nungluk mentioned, if the manufacturers adopted that process and reduced the lead time as well as the cost, then the market for satellite procurement would be much, much bigger than it is today. In order for us to pay for ABS-2, which is a $350 million program, we actually have to spend 18 to 24 months getting condo customers to help us subsidize the cost. Otherwise, there's no way we would have been able to pay for that on our own. So I would encourage the industry, the manufacturing and the launch industry, to figure out a way to build the Model T type of a satellite that can be launched on a cost-effective basis. So I'm sure everybody here in this panel would love to buy a satellite for $100 million.
Okay, Henry, you want to add anything?
Yeah. I think for us as a pay TV operator, we really saw our growth taking off when we moved to expand beyond international offering to include local offering. So I think when we first started the initial foray, the kind of services we provided and the differentiator at that time was to give the Malaysian audience the best of international content and channels. But very quickly you kind of hit a certain plateau, and then you start to kind of go flat in terms of your growth. And then when we start to localize is when we see the growth picking up. And now we're actually going one step further beyond localization and what we call vernacularization. And it's actually about serving the communities in the language of their choice in a manner that they find it most relevant. And that what we found is really getting us additional growth, right? Not just in terms of new subscribers, but also in terms of the take-up of what we call upselling packs. Yeah, I think our needs are, we are quite ambitious, so basically we really need more bandwidth for satellite. I think you will know that we are looking at more transponders and all that, and there's a cry out for that, partly because not just we want more channels, but I think the requirement for HD is going to be the order of the day in the next few years. I think we are scheduled to have 36 HD channels by next year, and really we are looking for even more after that. So we need for commercial purpose and also for backup purpose, yeah, in both ways.
Okay, moving to challenges to DTH in Asia. And I think we can all imagine a number of serious challenges, but rather than us imagining it, why don't you tell us a little bit about the ones you're confronting in the market? Henry, why don't you start?
I think for us, there are a few challenges. One, obviously, currently we are at 50% penetration of Malaysian households. There are 6 million Malaysian households. We are in 3 million homes. Key challenge is where do we go from here? Generally, we're quite buoyant. We see our business as usual is continuing to grow. We expect the penetration would easily go up to 60, 65, and we're quite optimistic that in the current run rate we will arrive at that penetration level. But in many ways we are thinking beyond that and looking at new products and services that can drive our penetration much higher than that. So obviously the current business will sustain us to 60, 65, but new products and services is what will probably drive us to 80, 90s and beyond that. I think the satellite still becomes a very good and cost-efficient means to reach the whole country. Given the geography of Malaysia with a mountain range and the fact that there's the island of Borneo in East Malaysia, I think the satellite still is very feasible to address the complicated geography of our country.
So in terms of that being, detrimental and a threat to the satellite business, I mean, what other threats are you seeing? I mean, what sort of things are keeping you awake at night, and what sort of things are really bothering you in terms of threats?
I think from a satellite operator, the number one threat is always a technical risk. We all worry about technical failure. We all worry about problems on the satellite. That goes without saying. But I think if you look longer term at the market risk, I think Romain Bausch today was quite right when he said we need to maintain our relevance. Just this past, I guess it was last week, I attended a seminar, and they were talking about content delivery. And they were interviewing, I guess they called it I can't remember the term they used. It wasn't the migrators, but the now generation that has grown up with the type of technology and access to technology.
The millennials, no?
Yeah, I can't remember what they called it. But anyway, we old people are migrators, the people that have grown up with something else and we've converted to the new technology. But the comment was, as they talked to people, they felt that the technology that we'd used 2 years ago was obsolete. That was old technology. So when you stop and think that the people who are consuming content and using these new technologies are saying that technology that we used 2 and 3 years ago is now obsolete, it gives you a feel of just how rapidly things are changing. And I think from our perspective, satellites have inherent advantages over many of the distribution methods. When it comes to broadcast, when it comes to point to multi-point delivery, we are the most efficient technology there. And I think it's important for us as these technologies develop that we stay on top of that. We're not complacent, and we see how satellite integrates into some of these new technologies. If we sit back and we are complacent and continue to do things the same way as we have always done it, these new terrestrial technologies are going to find other alternatives. I think we always need to be relevant. We always need to be part of that equation as they're looking at the overall delivery capability and delivering bandwidth. Consumption of content continues to grow. And in my view, the last, I guess it was the 2 panels ago, there were some people that thought that we were going to hit a plateau and we weren't going to see significant demand for capacity. I would disagree. I would disagree. There are challenges in the satellite industry for the delivery or the provision of that capacity, orbital slots, frequency coordination, all of that are considerations and issues for us. But I think as you look at the consumption of content and the many ways that content is being delivered, that the requirement for capacity is going to continue to grow. And if we're conscious of that and the role that we play, and we continue to evolve as this technology grows, then I think we can stay on top of things and we can continue to be relevant and play a key part in that development. So I think that's the biggest worry that I see going forward, is staying on top of it and being abreast of that. We design satellites that have to operate for 15 years. It's pretty difficult. So we need to maintain flexibility so that we can meet those challenges as they evolve over the next years.
So given that you are dealing with a long life cycle product, 15 years as you mentioned, how is AsiaSat sort of integrating with these new technologies? How are you innovating delivery with these new forms of...
The key for us. The key for us is to be able to provide solutions for customers. A couple of panels earlier, they were talking about the cost of satellites, the cost of launches. And I think one of the drivers for those costs is the fact that we as satellite operators need to remain flexible. If you take a look years ago, we were able to put up a satellite with a wide beam, C-band capacity, or KU band, and people would come up and they'd take it, and you could sell, and it was a fairly safe bet for the duration of the satellite that you operated. Now, as we're looking at the evolving technologies and we're seeing changes in the marketplace, and you take a look particularly in Asia where the economies are developing so fast, you have to have flexibility. So now when we sit down with our satellite suppliers, we're not asking for a straight C-band, bent pipe satellite. We're looking at switching and different beams and steerable beams, frequency reuse, a lot of different applications that give us that flexibility so that over the next 15 years, while this satellite is operational, we have the capability to adapt as we see the markets change. And so as we talk to satellite providers, I mean, that's the real key for us, flexibility. Build that flexibility into the satellite so that we can adapt as markets change, as regulations change, and technology evolves.